Depending on whether you're a Supercross fan or a NASCAR fan, the name Ricky Carmichael brings upon two very different meanings. For those who have followed Supercross and or motocross racing since the early 2000s, you probably know Carmichael is one of the best in his field, as between 2001 and 2006, he won a staggering 5 championships, only missing out on the 2004 title when he was sidelined due to injury. However, if you're only familiar with the NASCAR side of things, you likely just remembered him as a struggling Truck Series driver who didn't last more than a few seasons before being shown the door. But today, it's time to look back over the entire stock car racing career of one of the greatest motorcycle racers of all time to determine once and for all if he was really that bad. Following his final AMA Supercross and Motocross championships in 2006, Ricky Carmichael announced that he would be stepping back from full-time motorcycle racing and switching his career focus onto stock cars. Nevertheless, he would still compete part-time in 2007, where he would win 2 of the 7 Supercross events he entered and every single one of the 6 motocross events. Oh, and by the way, he finished second in all the Supercross races he lost. So needless to say, Carmichael was still the best in the business on his way out, but there was no guarantee that his skill set would transfer over to the asphalt. During his weeks off from motorcycle racing in 2007, Ricky was getting his feet wet in the world of stock cars by racing late models all over the country. At the time, he was under the GIN Racing Driver Development Program and was receiving guidance from their veteran Cup driver Mark Martin. Then in 2008, now fully retired from motorcycle racing, Carmichael would sign on with Ken Schrader Racing to run the full Camping World E-Series schedule, with complete backing from the new AMA Supercross title sponsor Monster Energy. Then at 28 years old, Carmichael was already closer in age to the veteran drivers than to many of the other rookies such as Austin Dillon and Trevor Bayne. Regardless, in his first year of NASCAR Touring Series racing, he fared respectably, earning a pole at South Boston, along with 3 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and a 6th place finish in the final standings. Though these stats wouldn't be all too impressive now for the East Series, back then the average field size hovered around 30, and of which at least 10 would have a decent shot at winning every week. But unfortunately, that can hardly be said for Ricky, because even though he had good stats on paper, he only led a single lap all season long and never finished better than 4th in a race. And his equipment was not to blame, or at least not entirely, as on one hand, Ken Schrader himself won for the team the West Series that year and an ARCA the year prior, but on the other hand, Carmichael's East Series teammate Jamie Hayes only managed to score 2 top 10s in his full-time effort. Looking back, Carmichael most definitely would have benefited from a second year in the East Series or even a year in ARCA to further prove himself and hopefully get some type of win under his belt. But with his sponsor Monster Energy wanting more TV exposure and being willing to pay the big dollars, he was rushed up to the Truck Series by 2009. With that said, it was no surprise that after running a majority of the schedule for that year's championship-winning team, Kevin Harvick Incorporated, he was unable to produce any notable results, just 2 top 10s across 18 starts. Those included a P8 at Auto Club and a P7 at Kentucky, both following third-place qualifying runs. In fact, if one thing was a strong suit for Carmichael in his rookie truck season, it was qualifying, as he would line up inside the top 10 7 total times and hold an average starting position of 13.1. But with his average finishing position being a much less impressive 17.8 and having crashed out of 3 races, it was clear that he still had a lot of work to do if he wanted to stay in NASCAR long-term. Carmichael would join the KHI allied team Turner Motorsports for the final 2 races of the 2009 truck season, and while his finishes of 18th and 19th for them were nothing special, his continued support from Monster Energy would lead to the team and driver pairing up full-time in 2010. And much to Carmichael's credit, he would show immediate success, scoring 2 top 10 finishes in the first 3 races, the first of which being his new career best of 6th. Then with 2 more solid top 15 runs at Nashville and Kansas, he entered the 6th round at Dover, sitting a respectable 8th in points, right ahead of the rookie RCR prodigy Austin Dillon, and only 4 spots back of his former teammate and the defending champion Ron Hornaday Jr. Unfortunately, the Dover weekend did not start out in favor of Carmichael keeping his hot streak alive, as engine failure would force him to start in the rear. At a time when there were no stage breaks to bring the field back together, he was in for a challenge, not only to make his way through the field, but just to stay on the lead lap. As it would turn out, though, cautions would be the least of his worries, because by the halfway point, there had already been 4, and all were due to crashes. So with a few drivers out of the race from those crashes, and a handful of others starting and parking, there were only 25 left in contention by that lap 100 mark. But still, while hanging on to the lead lap, Carmichael was only running in 18th and clearly struggling to find speed. On lap 114, debris trailing from the 60 truck of Stacy Compton caused the yellow flag to fly yet again and allowed everyone an opportunity to come down pit road. Ultimately, only a minority of the teams would decide to come down and service their trucks, as due to the awkward timing of the caution, many teams, including that of the leader Kyle Busch, would opt to save their last set of tires for later. However, for those that did come down, such as the previous third-place driver Elliott Sadler, they'd be good to run to the end on fuel. This pit strategy effectively boosted Carmichael all the way up from 18th to 11th for the restart. But nonetheless, all the spotlights were on Eric Almirola, as with this caution, the driver of Billy Ballou's number 51 would finally get back onto the lead lap thanks to the Aaron's lucky dog. Earlier in the race, Eric, who was running 4th at the time, was forced to make an unscheduled green flag pit stop upon feeling a right front tire going down. And although he lost basically no time on track from the wear of the tire itself, and his crew was able to execute a quick 2-tire stop, he would end up losing 2 laps to the leader. Now lining up at the tail end of the longest line and one of the fastest trucks in the field, Almirola would be one to watch throughout the later half of the race, especially since he was still hungry for his first Truck Series win. Either way, the pit strategy would fall in favor of the short pitters nearly immediately. At just 5 laps into the green flag run, the caution would come out for the 6th time that day when the 12 of Mario Gosselin got around and made a good bit of driver's side contact with the outside wall. While Carmichael would lose all his new track position having to come down pit road, he almost lost a lot more because it was his truck that Gosselin got into off corner exit and nearly took with him. This time on the restart, the front row was made up of Jason White and the 2008 champion Johnny Benson Jr., both of whom had been non-factors thus far, while Almirola now lined up 6th and the dominant driver of Busch, who was the first to make it out of the pits, had been dropped back to 11th. Now with 73 laps remaining, every driver had enough fuel to make it the rest of the way, so it would be a matter of tire saving and pure endurance to determine the winner. Within just 10 laps of the restart, the hard-charging number 18 of Kyle Busch was able to get past Benson for the lead, and do so with ease. Meanwhile, some of Busch's closest competitors throughout the day of Johnny Sauter and Ron Hornaday Jr. had not yet cracked the top 5. So as per usual in the Truck Series, Kyle Busch was in a league of his own, and it would take near extreme circumstances for any other driver to have a shot at taking the top spot. Even better for the chances of a Kyle Busch win, 3 frontrunners would crash out in independent single-truck accidents over the next 50 or so laps. Those drivers included Timothy Peters, Elliott Sadler, and Johnny Sauter, who were running 7th, 2nd, and 6th respectively, before they would each cut a tire and shoot up hard into the wall. Following the caution for Sauter's incident, there were only 4 laps remaining, and nearly all the leaders were still holding on with roughly 70-lap-old or older tires. Setting up for the restart, the running order still saw Kyle Busch out front. However, lining up to his inside would be the 15 of Benson, who despite having hovered around 10th most of the race, had very impressively fended off the likes of Crafton and Hornaday ever since his pit strategy paid off a good while ago. After winning the championship just 2 years prior at age 45, Benson had fought through both severe injury and lack of sponsorship in the years that followed to secure a part-time ride with Billy Ballou Motorsports in what would end up to be his final NASCAR season. And now, with just a 4-lap shootout to the finish, Benson was in better position than ever to pick up one final win on his way out of the sport. However, when the race went back green, both of the front row stars would succumb to mechanical failure. Before even reaching the start-finish line, Benson's truck would be unable to get up to speed whatsoever due to vapor lock, causing the entire inside lane to check up. Then while entering turn 1, the fuel pump would break in the number 18 truck and slow Busch down significantly, allowing the 51 of Eric Almirola to get past him and into the lead. Then yet a third mechanical failure would happen simultaneously when Austin Dillon's oil pump would burst and leak oil all around the track, forcing out the caution once again before a single lap could be completed. Out of all that mess, Benson would be the only of the 3 to continue on, restarting well outside the top 10, as Dillon and Busch would both go behind the wall. With the race extending past the scheduled distance under caution, it would restart as a green-white checkered, meaning an extra 2 laps would be added on to hopefully decide the winner under a green flag finish. In the lead this time was Eric Almirola, who after overcoming his 2-lap deficit earlier on, had made the most of the leader's problems and was in position to capture his first career win if he could hold off the veteran drivers behind him. But Almirola was not the only driver to make the most of the late race shenanigans, as now lining up in 7th was the 4 of Ricky Carmichael, who had been fortunate enough to restart on the outside lane and overtake multiple trucks when Benson couldn't fire off. When the green flag waved for the final time, more drivers would face the same fate as Benson on the last restart, as with all the trucks running low on fuel, not all were able to get enough fuel to the engine to get back up to speed right away. So while the 2nd and 6th place trucks of Todd Bodine and Ron Hornaday Jr. fell back as a result of that issue, Eric Almirola was able to run the final 2 laps uncontested en route to his first career Truck Series win, and Ricky Carmichael was able to get past the struggling trucks to come home a personal best of 4th. So having spent nearly all the race outside the top 10 and even the top 15, Ricky took advantage of the unusual circumstances in front of him and performed when it mattered the most to record his first ever top 5 finish. Over the rest of the season, the number 4 team managed to score 2 more top 5s, both P5s, one coming at Kentucky thanks in part to fuel strategy, and the other coming at Talladega after staying in the thick of things all race along and threading right through the big one with 3 laps to go. In total, Carmichael had 9 top 10s that year, and though he certainly took a step in the right direction from his rookie year, he only led a single lap and ranked a rather disappointing 13th in the final standings. Additionally, he was outperformed by his teammate James Buescher, who despite missing 3 races, still finished in the top 5 3 more times than Carmichael did, and finished 2 spots better than him in the standings. Regarding the cleanliness of Carmichael's driving, he didn't do all that bad for Truck Series standards, only crashing out 4 times all season long. And with Monster Energy still on board with him, Turner Motorsports announced to be back for a 2nd year. Kicking off the 2011 season with a bang, Ricky put together great runs in both of his Daytona races, with a P8 in trucks and a P4 in ARCA. However, luck would not follow his way in the next 2 races, because at Phoenix he'd be taken out late in the going by Parker Kligerman, and then at Darlington he would cause a wreck of his own fault when he got loose exiting turn 4. Heading into the 4th round of Martinsville, Ricky was due for a rebound, as after starting 20th and working his way up just outside the top 10, a caution on lap 56 would open the door for pit strategy. Led by the 2nd place driver of Ron Hornaday Jr., a minority of drivers including Carmichael chose to give up their track position in favor of an early pit stop. And that risk would pay off, because just 10 laps removed from the restart, the caution would fly again when Todd Bodine went around off the bumper of Kevin Harvick. Additionally, Carmichael had worked his way past all the other drivers that shared his pit cycle, so while most of the leaders who had yet to pit chose to make a stop, Carmichael would line up in a 3rd spot right behind the trucks of Miguel Paludo and Jason White, both of whom had pitted very early on in the race. And on the restart, Ricky would fly to the inside of both the front row trucks and take control of the race for the next 16 laps, his first time ever leading more than a single lap in a Truck Series race.
Ricky Carmichael now leading the field at Martinsville Speedway. Miguel Paludo running 2nd. Matt Crafton, Max Pappas, and Ron Hornaday. Yes, that is your top 5 in the Truck Series at Martinsville. Carmichael, Paludo, Crafton, Pappas, and Hornaday.
And I want to tell everybody at home, nothing weird happened. They raced into this position. These guys are just this good. Our usual front runners of Harvick and Busch aren't up to speed today. Harvick's been on pit road to work on his truck. He had the front end out from underneath of it.
How about this international pass with Max Pappas going by Miguel Paludo?
A lot of sheet metal damage to both trucks. Hornaday trying to get through unscathed.
He's able to get by Paludo. Now Jason White's going to try to work to the inside. There's a little bit of contact. He gets him up out of the groove and now pulls up beside him.
Carmichael would drop back to 3rd on the next restart, but he would hold his ground and not fall back any further before eventually retaking the lead from Ron Hornaday Jr. on lap 124.
4 of Ricky Carmichael was caught up, and here comes Sauter as well. How about we remember back, just last year, when Johnny Sauter and Ron Hornaday were coming out of 4, Hornaday moved Sauter out of the way. Well, we see payback here at Martinsville. Now we've got a battle for the lead. Carmichael takes the top spot. Here comes Sauter right behind him to take 2nd.
How about that? Ricky Carmichael goes back to the lead, driving around Ron Hornaday.
How happy is Ricky Carmichael? This is his best race ever.
Hermie Sadler.
Yeah, what a job Ricky Carmichael is doing. He's been fast all year long, but he's coming off 2 really bad finishes that were caused by accidents at Phoenix and at Darlington. I talked to his crew chief, said, what's Ricky saying about the truck? And he says, he is quiet. And when he's quiet, he's happy. And obviously happy right now as he is driven to the front here at Martinsville.
Ricky Carmichael, known for dominating on 2 wheels in a sport that takes timing and precision, and really that's a lot what it takes here at Martinsville.
After leading for 20 laps this time, the caution would come out on lap 136 for 2 independently occurring crashes. In turn 1, Brad Sweet tried to make a move to the inside of the lapper Chase Mattioli, but was unclear of Matt Crafton, causing him to spin and for multiple trucks to check up and make contact. Then at the other end of the track, the 31 of James Buescher entered turn 3 with a full head of steam, completely dumping the 1 of Jeffrey Earnhardt and destroying both of their trucks. Regardless, on the restart, Ricky Carmichael's reign would come to an end once and for all when he washed up the track and allowed the 18 of Kyle Busch to get around him. However, the loss of the lead would turn out to be the least of his concerns, as on lap 159, after getting passed by Johnny Sauter for second, Ricky thought he had enough room to blend back down to the inside, but he was unclear of Cole Witt and spun himself around. The rest of the race remained just as caution-prone as the first half, so with 24 to go, Ricky had been able to work his way back up to 4th. But with a mistake on the ensuing restart, in addition to running on worn tires, he dropped like a rock right back to 15th. In the end, he was able to make up most of that track position to come home P8, but that result definitely does not reflect how well he ran that day. As in all categories besides the finish, it was by far the best full race of his career. Throughout the rest of that season, though, Ricky more or less returned back to how he normally ran, and ended up averaging a 17.2 place average finish, and scoring 1 pole, 1 top 5, and 7 top 10s. So while he showed promise at times, especially in the spring Martinsville race, the truth was that he had worse statistics than his already average 2010 season, was never in contention for a win following Martinsville, and took even worse care of his equipment as he crashed out of 5 races. Ricky also made some select Nationwide Series starts for Turner Motorsports in 2010 and 2011, where he had similar success, or lack thereof, as he did in trucks. With 4 starts in each of those seasons, he recorded an average finish of 24.3 and a best finish of 9th at Road America in 2011. In fact, that Road America race was one of his best ever, as after starting 15th in his first ever road course start, he quickly moved up inside the top 10 and stayed there for just about the entire duration of the race. Heading into 2012, with Monster Energy remaining loyal to him as a sponsor despite his slight overall underperformance, Ricky was able to organize a deal to run a majority of the Nationwide Series schedule. Or at least he was supposed to. See, with Kyle Busch Motorsports looking to attempt its first full-time season in the Nationwide, already with sponsorship from Monster Energy, Ricky Carmichael was the perfect fit to share the ride with the bossman Kyle Busch. But according to Ricky's interview on the Dale Jr. Download, 2 major incidents between both Busch brothers prevented this from happening. The first one came in the penultimate race of the 2011 Truck Series season at Texas, and some of you may already know where this is going, but while Ricky actually put together one of his better races, starting 5th and finishing 8th, Kyle Busch did not have as good of a day, or week, or off-season. Yeah, on lap 13, Ron Hornaday Jr. got loose trying to move through the middle of Busch in a lap truck, causing him to wash up into Busch and put them both into the wall. And despite them both only receiving relatively light damage, Busch immediately sped right into the back of Hornaday under caution and intentionally right-hooked him into the outside wall, demolishing both of their trucks. Even worse in this situation was that entering the race, Hornaday was sitting 3rd in the standings, only 15 points back of the lead and still well within championship contention. Busch, having just committed arguably the most detrimental action to stock car racing ever, was promptly parked for the rest of the weekend, put on probation for the rest of the season, and handed a $50,000 fine. But his retaliation didn't just garner punishment from NASCAR, but from his sponsors as well, as M&M's refused to sponsor him in the remaining Cup races that year, and his Nationwide Series sponsor, Z-Line Designs, dropped their sponsorship permanently. So while Busch desperately tried to salvage his sponsor relations in the coming weeks, the part-time Nationwide deal with Ricky Carmichael was put on hold. But that's not why the deal fell apart. Rather, that was because of Kurt Busch's termination from Penske at the end of the 2011 Cup season. With the no-good rides available to him in Cup for 2012, Kyle made the last-minute decision to add Kurt to his Nationwide team instead of Carmichael, in hopes of keeping his racing career alive. So now with Carmichael no longer on board at KVM and no other appealing offers, he just decided that was that and he hung his helmet up for good. So, was Ricky Carmichael really that bad in NASCAR? I would say no. Even though he had a very average and arguably below average results for 2 championship-winning teams in the Truck Series, he also had just about the least stock car racing experience out of anyone he was ever racing against. Even the teenagers and rookies of the Truck Series have multiple years behind them in either NASCAR Touring Series or local late model racing, whereas Carmichael had only been behind the wheel of stock cars since 2007, just 2 years before his rookie truck season. Looking at his career from that angle, his stats are certainly more reasonable, and while he wasn't exactly the cleanest driver, he wasn't a crash magnet by any means. So overall, I'd have to say that Ricky was a good driver in NASCAR. He performed a little above his expectations, but was definitely not good enough for me to consider him underrated, or to say that he deserved another shot more than the next guy. But that's all I've got to say for today. If you guys did enjoy this video, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like these. We also just recently hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you all very much, all 1,000 plus of you, in addition to everyone new watching this video, for allowing that to happen. I just started this channel back in November, and I'm very grateful that so many people seem to like my videos and have helped me grow this channel so quick. Also, a special shout out to Villain6634 for being my 1,000th sub, as well as Alabama Scar for being my first subscriber other than my personal accounts. But yeah, that's about everything I've got to say. So thank you all again, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.